My name is Jonah Blake. I was born in a small town by the sea. My father ran a shop. He sold cloth and tools. My mother cooked and sewed. I had two older brothers and a sister. We lived in a big, noisy house. I had a good childhood. I also had a big wish. I wanted to go to sea. As a boy, I watched ships. I watched the sails and the flags. I read maps and books. The sea felt like a call. I dreamed of far places. My father did not like the idea. He wanted me to work in the shop. He wanted safety. My mother also worried. She thought the sea was too dangerous. When I turned 18, I could not stay home. I wanted to try. I told my father. He was quiet. He looked at me. He tried to stop me. I could see fear in his eyes. He spoke slowly. He said the sea could kill me. He said the world was hard. I still wanted to go. One autumn morning, I went to the docks. A friend of mine had a small ship. The work was honest. The owner hired me for a short trip to the city. I felt the salt on my lips. The ropes smelled of tar. For the first days, the sea was calm. My heart felt light. Then the wind changed. Clouds grew dark. The waves rose like hills. The ship rolled. Men shouted. I clung to the rail. The storm felt endless. I thought of home. I thought of my warm bed. I thought of my mother's face. Still, I felt alive. Fear and wonder mixed in me. When the storm passed, the sun came out. I met a man on deck. He talked and laughed. He gave me a drink. I drank more than I should. I slept like a child. When I woke, the sea was calm again. I forgot my fear for a while. We sailed on. The ship made good time. Then a new danger came. Another ship followed us. At first, we thought it was a trader. Then the ship came closer. It flew strange flags. Men with fierce eyes swung ropes. The other ship was a pirate ship. They attacked in the afternoon. Their crew screamed. They fired small guns. Our men fought back. The noise was sharp and cruel. I saw friends fall. We did not win. Men from the pirate ship jumped across. They took us. I became a prisoner. They treated us like objects. They gave orders with rough voices. The pirate captain kept me near the main cabin. He used me for small jobs. I had to cook and sweep. I grew tired and cold inside. One day, I met a young woman in the captain's house. She was a servant. She was quiet. Her name was Lila. She had dark hair and kind eyes. We did not speak the same language. Still, we found ways to share small things. A smile. A look. A warm hand on a cup. Her presence eased my heart. The pirates sent us on other voyages. We took cargo and men. Once the pirates planned a long trip. They wanted to sail far. I helped repair the ship. I learned small skills. I learned to tie knots and light fires. Often I helped the captain fish. A boy worked with me. His name was Tom. He was small and quick. We became friends. A fog covered the sea one night. We could not see the shore. We lost our way. We drifted for a long time. When the fog lifted, the ship lay near a rocky coast. The captain looked tense. He chose to go to the shore. He ordered small boats to carry men and goods. We loaded into a small boat. The waves were bigger than the boat. The wind pushed us to sharp rocks. A huge wave hit. The boat turned over. I swallowed salt water. I was pulled under. I thought the world had ended for me. By luck, I washed up on a small beach. I coughed and coughed until my chest hurt. I lay on the sand and watched the sky. I was alone. I had little more than the clothes on my back. I found a small knife in my pocket. I found a half-broken rope. My limbs shook. I walked along the shore. I found a river with fresh water. I drank slowly. The island was green and wild. Birds called. The air smelled of flowers and seaweed. I also found a chest of dry food on the wreck. I took what I could. I built a small raft and put some things on it. I brought them to a place I could call camp. At first, I slept under a tree. I kept a small fire. Night was full of strange sounds. I was afraid of animals. I used my knife and a stick to make a spear. I kept the food high in the trees. I named the place Safe Bay. I carved a mark on a stick to show the day I arrived. The mark helped me measure time. The days taught me hard lessons. I learned to make a shelter of wood and leaves. I dug a small hole to store food. I learned to make a pot from clay. I learned to grind corn and make coarse bread. The first bread I baked tasted like old stones, but it was mine. I ate it with joy. I found a dog on the wreck. He was thin and frightened. The dog came to me slowly. I fed him a piece of fish. He put his head on my knee and closed his eyes. I named him Patch. He became my friend. He chased birds and kept watch at night. His simple love warmed the long days. I also found tools on the ship. I took nails, rope, and a small hatchet. I used them to build better things. I made a small fence near my shelter. I wanted a place to protect food from wild goats. I found some young goats in the hills. They were timid. I trapped one with a net. It kicked me in the face and broke my nose. I laughed despite the pain. Years passed. I cleared ground and planted seeds. I learned the island's moods. There were short dry seasons and long rainy ones. I had to plant at the right time. I learned to move with the weather. I learned to listen to birds and wind. I made a quiet life. I mended poles and made small furniture. I wrote a small book of notes. I kept days and events on my carved stick. I taught myself to read other tally marks on old charts I had from the wreck. Each mark was a memory. One calm morning, I walked to the far side of the island. A small valley opened before me. In that valley grew melons and sweet berries. I had never seen such fruit. I ate until my stomach ached. I took a sack and brought home what I could. The valley became my secret place. In time, my goats multiplied. I made pens and a small yard. I had milk and cheese. I learned to make butter. I made a small map of the island. It was crude, but it helped me travel without getting lost. I marked rivers, caves, and hidden beaches. I had long days of peace. I also had deep loneliness. I missed voices. I missed simple laughter. I missed my wife's gentle smile. I wrote letters in my head and burned them. I spoke to Patch and the parrots I taught to speak my name. One morning, I saw a strange mark on the sand. It was a human footprint. The print was not mine. It was large and deep. My hands went cold. I felt a new fear. People could be near the island. I hid my valuable things. I sealed my cups and weapons in a cave. A few months later, I found bodies on the shore. It was a terrible sight. Bones lay in the sand. Fires had blackened the wood. The sea had brought horror to our beach. My heart beat fast with anger and fear. I thought of cannibals. I thought of thieves. I knew then that the island touched other islands. People lived not far away. My life changed. I built a second shelter. I made hidden places for my goats. I dug holes for traps. I did not want to fight, but I would defend what I had. I carried my guns rarely. The sound of a gun would call trouble. I used silence and stealth instead. One night, a small signal came from the sea. A gun fired far out on the water. I thought someone needed help. I made a big fire on the beach to show a light. I kept the fire high until midnight. No one came ashore. I waited. Hope and fear warred in me. The next day, a destroyed ship lay off the coast. I took my canoe and went to see it. The ship looked Spanish. It seemed empty. A dog sat on the deck and wagged. The dog jumped into my lap as if it knew me. He had no master. I took him to the beach. He became my second friend. I named him Merrick. I found crates of candles, tea, shirts, and a locked box. I opened the box with a key hidden under a deck plank. Inside were coins, maps, and a few small trinkets. Money had no use here. Still, the coins made me feel rich. I took what I could carry. I did not bother with gold so much as with tools and gunpowder. For a long time, the beach was empty of people. Then, one day, I saw canoes on the shore. A group of men danced around a fire. They painted their bodies with red pigment. They tied 2 men with ropes and brought them to the camp. One man was beaten by the group in the sand. I watched from the trees. My hands clenched. After some night, one prisoner made a run for it. He ran past my tree line and stumbled near my path. 2 of the men chased him. I waited behind an old fig tree. When the first of the men came close, I jumped and shot. The second man tried to shoot an arrow. I shot him too. The escaped prisoner froze. He dropped to his knees. He looked at me with dark, wide eyes. I told him, slowly, "Come, you are safe." He did not speak my tongue. I used signs. I gave him bread. He ate like a starving man. I took him to my hidden cave. His name, he told me later in broken words, was Marcos. He came from a far island. He had been captured and meant to be a sacrifice. His family had been gone. Marcos stayed with me. He learned slowly. He taught me small games from his island. He knew how to read the stars a little differently. He could make a small fish trap that I had not seen before. We shared stories without many words. We laughed at the same things. My loneliness shrank. Together we planned. Marcos knew the movements of the other tribes. He told me of their canoes and dances. He showed me where they kept nets. We watched their rhythms for weeks. Then, one night, under a dim moon, we moved. We walked in silence. We crept along the beach. I had a small band of arrows trimmed and sharp. We saw a fire and many men. The scene could make a man sick. I whispered to Marcos, "Take the prisoner." He nodded. We moved fast. We were two ghosts in the dark. Soon we found the small place where the captives were held. One man stood alone with a spear. Marcos darted forward. He used a trick of his island. He grabbed the guard and pushed him to the ground. I ran and cut ropes. The freed man lay on the sand and cried. We took the man away through the trees. His name was Paulo. He came from a ship that had been raided months before. The night was tense. Many dangers waited. We covered the prince with sand. We left a trail of smoke, small and low. We reached the sea with 3 rescued men. They gasped at the air. One kissed my hand. I felt proud and afraid at once. The next weeks were full of work. We prepared for defense. We dug traps. We made sharpened stakes near the paths. We practiced a plan to hide and to strike. I taught Paulo and the others how to make small fences and pots. I taught them how to bake bread between hot stones. We built a larger shelter near the valley of fruit and melons. I learned more patience. I learned to accept help. My days were full of voices now. The men told me their tales. They showed me songs from distant islands. They made small paintings on my cave walls. Patch learned to understand many commands. The parrots learned new words. Laughter returned like a bird. Months passed and then years. Slowly, more boats came near the islands. Some were hostile. Some were plain traders. We took goods and sometimes traded small things. But I felt the pull of a different thing now. I felt the pull of home. One dawn, a ship with white sails came close. It flew no flags of war. A man on deck shouted in English. I ran to the hill with my telescope. The ship came near the shore. I lit 3 fires in a triangle. We rowed out in our canoe and waved shirts on sticks. The ship answered with a small boat. Men came ashore. They looked small at first, then they came closer. They wore hats and thick coats. A tall man with kind eyes stepped onto our sand. He looked at the men and at me. He asked, through gestures and slow words, how many had survived. We told him of the wrecks, the canoes, and the stolen men. He listened. He offered a place on his ship for those who wished to go. I stood quiet. My heart hurt. The island had given me life and pain. I remembered the first time the sea had taken me. I thought of Lila. I thought of my father's fear. I thought of the carved stick that kept my days. I thought of Patch and Merrick and the parrots. I thought of Marcos and Paulo and the goats in their pens. The tall man said, "We can take you to the mainland. You can write to those you love." I nodded. I felt sudden lightness. It was time to go. I had learned the island. I had lived with its storms and its calm. I had built, hunted, tilled, and healed. The island had changed me. We loaded our things on the ship. The men who had been freed hugged me. They thanked me in their tongues. A few decided to stay and to live with goats. Some would return with sailors who came each year. I knew they could be safe with the small fences we had built. On the ship, I met the captain. He was not like the pirate captain. He was a quiet man. His eyes were steady. He gave me a small coat. He said I had been brave. I told him a little of my story. He gave me bread and warm cloth. For the first time in many years, I slept on a soft bed. We sailed for many days. The sea was a long road. I watched the island shrink behind us. I felt tears. The ship sailed well. Men worked on the rigging and sang short sea songs. I walked the deck each morning. I tasted fog and wind. When the ship reached a busy harbor, I saw a world I had missed. Smoke rose from chimneys. Boats crowded the water. People pushed carts on the quay. I found a letter writer and wrote to my mother. My hands shook. I told her I was alive. I told her I thought of her often. I did not tell all the small sadnesses. Some things are heavy to write. I found a small house and a stall. I sold some things and made a tidy sum. I married Lila in a quiet room. She had been found by another ship and had crossed the ocean under a name she kept. Our wedding was small. The food was simple. The ring we used was a small coin we wrapped in thread. It was enough. Years later, I walked sometimes on the sea edge. I traced the horizon. I touched the sail of a ship and smiled. I still kept my carved stick. The marks were many now. I found comfort in the simple cuts. They told me of storms and of bread, and of the day I first saw a footprint on the sand. I told my children stories by the fire. I told them of the pelicans and of the first dog, Patch. I told them of strange men on painted canoes and of the brave night when Marcos freed prisoners. My voice was soft. My sons and daughters listened with wide eyes. Sometimes I went back to the island. I sailed and walked the shore. The fences I had built stood. The goats grazed under the sun. A small house had new paint. New voices were in the trees. I felt a stitch of old sorrow. I also felt joy. The sea had been a teacher. It had taken much, and it had given much. I had learned that fear and courage rest on the same path. I had learned that a man can start with a single mark on a stick and build a life from it. I had learned that friendship and kindness could come from the least likely places. On clear nights, I would look at the stars. I would trace the path of the old ship in my mind. I would feel the salt on my lips and the sand under my feet. I would remember the carved cross I had put on the beach years ago. I would remember the date I carved into it and how it felt to count days with small cuts. In the end, I knew the island had not owned me. It had only shaped me. I had chosen to leave. I had chosen to return sometimes. The sea had taught me to be steady. I lived my days in pieces of small wonder. My life grew long and full. When I am old and the days are slow, I sit by the window and watch the harbor. Boats come and go. Children play with shells. The parrots in my yard still say my name in a crooked voice. My carved stick rests on the shelf. Each cut on it is a small voice from my past. I touch it and remember sand and storms. A thin dog, a brave boy, and an act of rescue that became a new life. That is my story. It is made of small things. It is the sound of oars in the dawn. It is the taste of the first bread I baked on cold stones. It is the warm press of a hand from a rescued man. It is the smell of rain on a dry valley. It is the voice of the sea calling, again and again, to a boy who could not stay at home. And when the wind moves the sail tonight, I will listen. I will smile and think. The sea was harsh, but she kept me honest. The island was lonely, but it taught me to love small things. The world is wide, and I have walked a small part of it. I am grateful.